first and foremost, just got a few different things. First, I'll address, obviously aware of the incident at MLK Plaza over the weekend, and as it pertains to questions about enforcement, procedure, I'm going to obviously defer that to PPD and Mike with their they're the experts in that field, and I'll have them answer those specific questions. And I think this is another case that has happened in many city departments where we have rules that are on the books, and this particular incident was rooted in some ambiguity, I believe. As was described from the organizers, there was a handshake agreement from 14 years ago, and I've tried to do my best for the sake of both parties always involved, of getting rid of handshake agreements and having some clarity. And that's not just for the city, but for whoever the event organizer is, or the sports team, or all of those different scenarios where we've had ambiguity around that. So I think we really are facing a kind of another case of that from this handshake agreement 14 years ago. I want to first say we reached out to Mr. Kimbrell. He will be in City Hall meeting with our staff about getting a permit, and we'll see how that conversation goes. And we want a harmonious conclusion. That being said, certainly I've reviewed the video, and I stand fully by our officer and his professionalism and his conduct throughout this particular incident. I don't think that Mr. Kimbrell had any ill intent, and I certainly don't think our officer had any ill intent. But this is one of those things why we try to eliminate ambiguity, is that there is a rule on the books clearly that the park closes at night. That said, this is an effort that's important to our community, and certainly you guys know me and my background growing up in this community, and that trying to help our homeless community is important. And we do appreciate and applaud those efforts of folks that are wanting to do that. So I think our intent right now, administratively, is to try to provide clarity on both sides and allow people to do good deeds in our city, and make sure that our entire team, whether it's our Parks and Rec department, our police department, the mayor's office, or otherwise, has some clarity as well. So again, I think that meeting's this afternoon with Mr. Kimbrell and our staff. And certainly from a permitting cost standpoint, if there's something that I can do to help cover that or offset that, this is not a case. The theory has started that this is a revenue discussion. It's really not. There's the reason we have permitted events at night is it could be from an insurance standpoint. It could be from an emergency standpoint, having a point of contact and a phone number. Sometimes the CEO or the leader of whatever the permitted event is in the city isn't there. And it's nice to know who those folks are too. So there's safety aspects to this. It's not just asking someone to fill out paperwork. I think it's, if I'm an organizer, I want to know when I can and can't be there. And certainly the city, we want to know that as well. So looking hopeful. I'm hopeful for a harmonious conclusion to this that allows the great work to continue in the city, and but that we just do it with a little bit more clarity. So I've got a couple more things, and then happy to take any questions or follow-ups on the parts that I can answer for you. Happy to do that here shortly. We are recycling. We're up to 3,799 total recycling customer signups, 93 new customers in November. In November, 21 and a half tons of recyclables were delivered to ECUA, and our contamination rate, our stellar rate, continues to hold at 7%. So 93% clean coming in, and that has held strong since we've started. So certainly that is good news as we continue to grow that and continue to market that moving forward. We had 62,000 total passengers from last Tuesday through Sunday for Thanksgiving, and so right around the same number as last year, inside a percent. But 62,000 came through. No significant issues other than the issue with one of the non-passenger planes blocking up traffic there on Wednesday of Thanksgiving. So we were able to get that resolved as quickly as possible. This Saturday is the 13th annual Runway 5K at the airport. If you feel like running on the runway, as I always remind you, and do it legally, you get to do it one day a year. and that's to support USO Northwest Florida. So if you go to runway5k.com to register, we can do that. Keep the Wreath Green, the fire safety campaign. Our PFD and Escambia County's Keep the Wreath Green fire safety campaign begins today. You'll see it, I'm sure, out front. And we have 5-foot wreaths on display as our city fire stations and to mark when we do have any issues. So it's just to keep that awareness up through this holiday season. Whether you're cooking or your tree or anything else that can cause some issues, we just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. You can go visit our PFD Facebook and Instagram page for fire safety tips throughout the month. And also, as a reminder, it's been a little bit, if you need a smoke alarm, make sure you call PFD. We've got them for you. We can bring you one for free, and we can put it in for you with our experts for free, 436-5200 if you're needing an update on those, or if you feel like you don't have smoke alarms or as many as you need in your house. So that is everything that I've got, and happy to take your questions.
Will the city drop the charges?
I can't speak to, I'm not the state attorney or the police department. That's certainly not something I can speak to or have the authority to say is or isn't going to happen at this point. I'd have to defer you to either PPD or the state attorney's office.
They'll make that call.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what they do. I've never been asked to make a call on that myself. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Mr. Kimbrell meeting with the city council potentially about the idea of the permit. Do you know about this Friday night event that happens? Is it a known thing for downtown? Something that you want?
Well, listen, I think this is public space, and there's people have a variety of opportunities to be permitted in public space, whether it's a arts festival, whether, I can tell you this, we certainly don't judge whether somebody gets permitted or doesn't get permitted on whether I'm going to attend the seafood festival or the arts festival or a car show, right? This is public property, and people have equal rights to be able to utilize that property so long as they're doing it through the proper channels. It'd be no different if someone decided to hold a concert at the amphitheater at night. That would be in violation of the rules at Maritime Park. If it was a permitted event, you can do it, and so I think citizens have the right to hold events in our public spaces so long as they go through the proper channels. And I think this is again a classic case of some type of handshake agreement 14 years ago that's not written down. And when you look back at it, you'd say, well, we were always going to get to this place at some point, whether for whatever reason, when there's not clarity on either side. And so, we certainly have to take some ownership of that, right? We need to provide clarity, and certainly we're hopeful that the folks doing good work out there, want to work alongside us and get all of that cleared up.
Is there, I guess, do you think the MLK Plaza should be sunset to sunrise, especially the second December row where this is kind of an issue down there, and the EIB spends $1,000 to put Christmas lights there and almost invites people there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think for that location specifically, sunset to sunrise is good?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a lot that goes into a decision like that. And so what you're describing is ultimately what the rules are at 95 parks in the city. There's clearly a reason why you don't have 95 different open and closing times at 95 parks. And maybe there's scenarios where not having one default at every park in the city doesn't fit exact. And so, your perception of, hey, MLK is a little bit different. This is, not the same as a big park with 15 or 20 acres in it. Yes, I would agree with that. But there's a complexity of circumstances that go into a decision like that. And what we would not want to do is start going down the road of saying each individual park in the city would have individual rules. How could we ever have a police department, memorize and enforce that? So to your question, it's something that I mentioned to you last year, something that we'd be willing to look at if we can find some clarity, not change something to create more ambiguity, but if we could find something that was very clear to everybody that made sense, then we would look at that. But at this point, based off of this incident, we are not knee jerk reacting to changing something tomorrow or changing something next week. I can't speak for the council members, but I can speak for the administration on that.
And I guess the ordinance says the hours are sunset to sunrise unless otherwise posted, so the ordinance does seem to allow for that possibility that it could be a spark that potential.
Right. And again, that's an assessment that's going to involve multiple departments. It's going to involve the Parks and Rec department, the police department, because the ordinances need to be enforced. So, our Parks and Rec staff is not out there enforcing, the police department is, right? And so that's why I certainly understand that MLK Plaza has some uniqueness to it that might be different than Bayview Park or Bruce Beach as it pertains to open and closing hours, just because of, again, a thoroughfare nature of it. That said, that it's not as simple as just saying, well, because this has a sidewalk down the middle, we're just going to now have no rules, or it's going to be open 24 hours a day. There's some just additional complexity that we are certainly open to looking at. But it's not as simple as just deciding that one's 7 o'clock, that one's 10 o'clock, that one's midnight. What can you do? What can't you do at midnight? Can you walk through? Can you sit? Can you stand? There's lots of different things that would need to be worked through. So we don't want to rush based off of this incident. We feel like we're on our way to getting clarity and getting a solution here for this particular incident. And then I think long term, we're happy to look at if there's a way that our police department feels comfortable and our Parks and Rec department feels comfortable, that we could get behind some type of modification. I just couldn't even speculate as to what that is, because every time you kind of open one thing, you might, to attempt a solution, you might be causing 2 or 3 more problems, or 2 or 3 more confusing aspects of it as well. And that's kind of been our general sense. But again, we're open to conversation on it.
Mayor, this has been going on for 14 years. What's the decision process for the police department? All of a sudden.
Well, again, if you I would just recommend reviewing the video if you haven't seen. But
It could have been taken last week, 2 weeks ago, 5
Right.
years ago.
mm-hmm.
Why do the confrontation there?
Well, again, I'm going to defer what the police policies and procedures are to the police. I'm not going to speak for them, but what I can say is that, in my review of the video 30 minutes ago, I did not, as a non-police person, I certainly did not approach that as a confrontation. I feel like we see what the scenario caused. We realize there's ambiguity on both sides, and we're doing where our feet are today to try to solve it. In terms of police patrolling, all of that, I would have to defer you to either Chief Brown or to Mike.
When you talked to Interim Chief Brown, was this a case of a citizen complaint, or was this just the patrolman doing his duty, patrol?
I'm not 100% sure if whether that was called in or if that was that was.
You're the mayor.
Yeah.
They talked to you about it.
No, what I'm saying is that really hasn't been the brunt of our conversation. The brunt of our conversation is here's an issue that we're trying to solve. So, but again, so you'll have to just certainly I want to make sure your information's accurate. So I would talk to the police department on that.
How did you learn about the handshake?
I learned about it today when that was what was conveyed from Mr. Kimbrell to our staff. No, so that wasn't my words. Yeah, that was, because we're trying to get to the bottom of how do we live in harmony here and allow this to happen. Well, like many cases, again, go pull whatever youth sports leash you want, go pull whatever. Unfortunately, or an event that had a fee waived for however many years, and then now we're not, and it's, I think it's just another lesson for the city that we're not trying to create paperwork. We're not trying to be difficult on anybody, but when you let ambiguity into the equation, I think ultimately that's where you run into issues. So I certainly have no disdain for the organizers of the event. I appreciate their efforts of what they want to do. And all our position is right now is let's try to facilitate that in a lawful way and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I know that the police department has offered up if there's a delay temporarily of getting any type of permit going for the next time, I know they've offered up their parking lot certainly for as many hours as they would need during the meantime. Certainly, I would do the same at City Hall on a Friday night if so that one of the events isn't skipped. It could be solved by then. I don't know, but we've offered that up already. I know the police department has conveyed to me that they've made folks aware of that offer as well.
Following up on the issue of the hours in the park. When this happened last year, we heard a story about it. With people being stopped for being in the park after dark. And I guess, did you have discussions back then about the issue? I'm just having a hard time seeing what is complex about just saying the park's closed at 9 p.m. to sunrise.
Well, do people stop walking at 9 p.m.? I mean, at 9:01, are we enforcing? I mean, I'm asking that rhetorically to say I think that what we realized a year ago is that you could say midnight, you could say 9, you could say 10, you could say sunset, and that doesn't create a solution, that doesn't create another problem necessarily, and so that doesn't mean we just don't want to do anything. But I think what we gathered was, yes, we went and looked at that, and we've said we haven't made a final decision to say we wouldn't do anything. Again, look at the 95 parks. I agree. MLK Plaza is a unique park in the grand scheme of what our other 90 plus parks look like, right? In terms of large acreage, maybe there's sites that aren't visible. There's no playground equipment. There's no, some of these other things that would cause kind of your stereotypical concerns about things after dark. So totally agree with that. Still do, as I did last year and still do this year. But it's one thing to agree that, hey, maybe there's a way to optimize how this is used. And also, how are you actually going to do that? How are you going to put those in and enforce it? So again, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. I'm open-minded about adjustments that make sense for MLK Plaza. To this point, we have not come up with enough clarity to say we can make this modification or this amendment to this ordinance or propose it to council. It rests with them. And listen, they could bring something anytime they'd like, and discuss it. Whether, certainly I would hope that they would confer with the administration since we would be in charge of enforcing it. But we are open-minded about that. We have not landed on a clear-cut solution that doesn't create another issue, and so that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. And I get that. I guess I'm still kind of struggling. Sunset in December is at like 4:45. In the summertime, it's almost 8 o'clock. How is that easier to enforce than a set time?
Yeah, I support the opposition of daylight savings as well. Well, remember what I think, and I'm not speaking to police enforcement. I'm just going to talk about Parks and Rec. There's a lot of I think very common sense reasons that a park closes at dark, meaning playground safety, being able sight lines for enforcement. If you said, hey, walk around at the park as late as you want, well, you can look at police data and say, things tend to happen late at night, that are more likely criminal occurrences than they're going to happen in broad daylight, right? Like we all know that. We've known that our entire lives. And so there's some very clear reasons why darkness falling on a park is different than it being in broad daylight. So I would love for it to not be 4:45 and 8 o'clock. I wish it was, a set time all the time. But that's a perfect example. If we just said 8 o'clock at every park, well, every park's different. You may not want 8 o'clock at some parks that you can't see, or have a certain amount of lighting that other parks don't. So that's what makes it difficult. And so it's that catch-22 of, do you want to make one rule over 95 parks, or do you want to have 95 sets of rules over each individual park, or do you find some happy medium in between? So again, we know MLK Park is unique, and it is an outlier. It's a little different than our standard parks. So that's why we're willing to entertain a solution, but we've got to have a solution that we feel like, because the second we change it, certainly the expectation is that's going to be enforced. And so we want to make sure that it's something that we can enforce.
Well, if Food Not Bombs was doing this at like 3 in the afternoon, would they need to get
You'd have to ask probably Beach or PPD. What I can tell you is the engagement was for being in a park after dark. That's what the engagement was. So I would say recurring events. I mean, Seafood Festival pulls a permit, and that's not only because it's at dark. So I would generally say yes. I mean, any regular event. I mean, if I had a picnic with my family, there's a clear line. But I mean, I think recurring events. We can't find another recurring event in the city happening at a park that doesn't pull a permit. I mean, I guess if that answers your question, this would be the only one that we know of. And now we got a lot of ground to cover. I can't promise that somebody 2 weeks ago didn't start, but I can tell you from our awareness, from our staff, there is no recurring event happening in a city park at night or during the day that we don't that we allow there to be no permit.
PPD had said that they would have just given Mr. Kimbrell a warning. He'd given his ID.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing kind of stems from giving his ID, nothing to do with the event itself. Are you glad to see PPD enforce that? Shed light on the issue?
Well, I'm not going to speak to specifics of this. I will speak generally and say it is PPD's job to enforce the ordinances on the books. That is the definition of their job. Again, I certainly stand with our officer of trying to do it in a collaborative way. But I'm really more focused on the net result. The net result is, yes, we've had an unfortunate incident that I think everybody had good intentions. I think, there's an organization trying to do good in our community, and there's officers that are trying to make sure that laws are followed. That I don't think there's any ill intent, but we just landed because we have a place of ambiguity. We've landed in this area that we're now, certainly working on as of this morning on a way to clean it up. So we want them to be able to continue to make those efforts. We want our officers to feel comfortable enforcing the laws in the books. If they aren't, then we got bigger questions. So again, I think specific to that issue and procedure and all that, I defer to Mike. But I can tell you, what I hope is that we're landing in a net better place, which is they know exactly where they can be. They don't have to have any concerns about whether they're following or not following rules. And certainly our officers now are better informed. And again, that's to keep the folks there safe. I mean, understand that permits, there's a lot of bandwidth that goes into permits on our side. And the reason we have permits is to make sure that the city knows what's going on, that we can get a hold of somebody if there's an emergency, all of those other things. It's to help us serve as well. It's not just to ask for information from someone else. So, I hope we end up in a good place. I certainly expect that. And what I can say is our city's position is we want this to get to a harmonious conclusion where these efforts can still take place, and we can just do it under the rules that everybody else is following.
State parks, but I want to pivot real quick to the Wayside Park.
Okay.
The county's announcement last week that they're going to get construction on the fishing bridge. One of the things that came out of that announcement on our audience was bathroom facilities. Now you had report that you said a year or so ago that the big house would go away in the original concept.
Yep.
Does the city and the county have they collaborated on the interface here?
Yes.
And what would you say about a park that, it really is a part of the fishing bridge? It's just who manages the rules of the road.
Yeah. So on the first, let me answer the question about collaboration. Certainly, I know our city public works team, our engineering team, and the county have been in conversations about all of the logistics of this. For example, the same way when Skanska built the bridge, they used Wayside as a laydown area. Well, at the end of the project, if they tore up the asphalt, they had to replace the asphalt, for example. So since the laydown yard of this, $20+ million fishing bridge project is going to be Wayside Park, we really made two decisions. One that I know I've shared previously is that we certainly were not going to go invest a bunch of money into new bathrooms or picnic benches and then put a construction fence up for 2 years. We have so many needs in terms of things that are need to be fixed, that we wanted to fix things that our citizens could be using today and not something that might be a couple of years at best from using. Second, we haven't had any specific conversations to your example about bathrooms. That old bake shop was falling in on itself. That wasn't even a discussion. It wasn't a salvage or demolish. It had fallen into such disrepair. And I don't know what the genesis was, whether it was Sally or it was just, yeah, was it? Okay, yeah. So, but it wasn't like there was I know no decision point was on my desk of keep the building, or, I mean, it was a no brainer that had to come down just in the condition it was in. But I think it's a good conversation. Unfortunately, we got a lot of time to have it because it'll take a little while, but no fault of the county's, just big project. But no, I think that would be a good conversation at the right time for us to, if there's needs to be any synergies. Certainly it's the county's bridge and it's the city's park. So that, speaking of ambiguity, but I'd be happy to work with them on, having some type of facility or what needs to happen there. Whenever they're ready to have that discussion, sir, I would be wide open to that for sure.
So FEMA came in here fairly recently with their money for the county,
Mm-hmm.
for the bridge, but how about your FEMA money for Wayside?
Yeah, that's been a complete struggle since before I got, we're 5 years and counting. I think, the number was minimal compared to the damage, $600,000, $700,000, something like that. So we really honestly haven't put it I think we were reading the tea leaves of their feelings about it, and whether it was a Skanska barge or whether it wasn't, these are all things that kind of took place, 5 years ago. I know our team's been fighting our best to make that number, an equitable number, a fair number. I don't think we've had a lot of success. I can certainly say from the previous administration to this one, I think as we move ahead, knock on wood, I never have to deal with any type of natural disaster, but I can certainly tell you for predicaments like that, where there's discrepancies in amounts of damage and all of that, we have put significant controls in place, including with our new emergency director, to ensure that the correct photographs are taken at the right times, before and after, so that when there is damage to the port, when there is damage to Wayside Park, we've got a clear documentation of what it looked like before and after. I could say that has probably been our challenge. We certainly stand by our request, but there was probably some procedural things that needed some cleaning up, and we have fully installed those. That if God forbid we were to have some other issue like that, that the city's in a better place to be able to get the claims that we would be rightfully owed, as I feel in the Wayside Park, but that there, again, a little too much ambiguity as it pertains to who did what. Was that the barges? Was that the hurricane? And I think that's where we've been paralyzed by FEMA at this point.
So Mayor, the original idea, be a little dated on this, you were consolidating Wayside Park, 17th Street boat ramp, and the parcel just on the other side of the track. It was all going into one project.
Correct. That what we can call in the north part of Wayside Park continues to move forward, which is the parking lot for the boat launch. The boat launch itself. Basically, think about the boat launch itself and everything north. So that would be the walk under the train trestle for Graffiti Bridge. That little boardwalk needs to be repaired on the north side, and then the parking lot. Whoever paved the parking lot however many years ago just went ahead and did it right on dirt. So there's just a chunk of asphalt and then like orange dirt underneath. We didn't count on that, so that's been a little bit of a delay. Also, another delay. I guess topically, y'all haven't asked me about Graffiti Bridge yet. I saw the update from this morning, but another truck got hit. But we continue. One of the delays has been the additional technology that we're going to be putting in place. Some of that technology equipment needed to go on FDOT right away, to allow it. But we're still moving ahead with that, and that we will have the most advanced warning system that certainly has been put in the city. I can't promise that that's going to overcome, drivers not paying attention, but we're going to do our best to put some technology in place. So all of that continues to move ahead. I believe the last schedule I got was some of that work would start Q1 of 26.
So it's not dependent on FEMA reimbursement?
No.
Okay. And the boat ramp?
Yeah, we made decisions probably within weeks of my administration that we were not going to paralyze any progress there ourselves, waiting on finality from FEMA. We felt like that was going to be a long process. I'd have to get you an exact update on if or where the world turns with FEMA as it pertains now, but I can tell you with the amount of money that we generally had agreed on, and the laborious nature of trying to get that to the finish line, it doesn't mean we've given up on it. It just means we were spending too much time on too small of an issue, and what we weren't going to do is just say we're going to do no work here for years and years to come until that's finalized. We tried to figure out other ways to handle it.
City suffering FEMA fatigue at the moment?
Probably most cities, I would imagine. And again, I've had no personal issue with them at all in my administration, but I think between the port, and Hurricane Sally, and that particular Hurricane Sally, those have been, certainly thorns in our side of trying to get what we felt is justified to come to us. And again, Amy LeBoy would probably be best to tell you exactly where those stand. But as you could tell, certainly from my office, we've moved along pretty quickly to try to get other things done. Anything else? Yeah.
Do you have an updated timeline?
The last update I heard from Erica was that demolition activity would begin very close to the new year. So the December agenda will have the development advisor item on there for a vote to be able to bring on that development advisor. That has nothing to do with the timeline, just topical because you've asked about Baptist. So that vote will happen December, and to bring that team on board. And what I heard was demolition activity would start to take place in January. But remember, that may not be big cranes and all of that. There's lots of staging, lots of other, prep work. It's a year plus long process for the demolition. It's just in and of itself. So, so I don't have any specifics on when you start to see something, significant or very tangible starting to come down. But I can tell you that our contractor's ready to go and start that process in January.
When that process does begin, I guess, can you speak to environmental concerns with the building and what's being done to ensure
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, number one, there's really been two kind of conversations that have been brought up. First is what you talk about is what is our mitigation of these materials going into place. What I can tell you is some of the same folks might have been asking why is a demolition of just these 3-4 buildings here cost $13 million. That's why. It's because it's not the expense of the bulldozer or the wrecking ball. It's the expense is being able to. That's where the labor and the significant expense takes place, is because it is federally regulated, state regulated, all of these things to mitigate any type of issues. Have to follow clear protocols. That's number one. Number two, it's why we hired an owner's rep. That the City of Pensacola, on our behalf, on my behalf personally, is going to have someone there every single day that doesn't work for the contractor, that works for the city, to say, hey, they're checking every load of concrete going out, whatever the case may be, that we have eyes and ears waking up every single morning that represent our best interest, which is making sure that all of these things are done correctly. And lastly, it's why you don't go with the lowest bidder. And I'm not saying that the lowest bidder would have caused any issues, but you want to see a track record of safety. And certainly, we feel that North Star brings that. And that's why you don't just say who gave you the lowest price. You say, show us what you've done. Show us what complex projects that you've taken on. And we want to feel confident as partners going into this that this is done correctly. So on that aspect is one. Second aspect that's certainly has some inaccuracies in it is the current contamination of the property. And the city attorney certainly could speak in more detail if you guys go down that road and kind of cover that part of it. But what I can tell you as a high arching overview is all of those things have been analyzed, assessed by DEP. All of those different issues that will take place have been accounted for, and that there's on the city side of things, And on the citizen side of things, there's absolutely no issues with the condition of the dirt as it sits now. That, there's a big long report that you could read through about every detail of it. And I think where there's confusion happening is people are reading the reports from what was there 30 years ago or there 40 years ago, and they're skipping the pages that might say that it got remediated or that it's been handled or it's been designated as clean by DEP. All of those things that have also taken place. So there's kind of two, Jim, to your question, two environmental conversations happening. And again, I think the latter is more of a, reading a report and maybe not having all the information. And I think the first part, that is a very certainly fair question. If I'm a citizen or I drive by there for work every day or whatever the case may be, how do I know that I'm safe? Well, I can certainly assure you we put those controls in place and we've tried to go above and beyond that not only will all of those regulations be met, but that we've got extra bandwidth there every single morning to make sure that exactly what is promised to get done will get done.
Barry, have you got any information from your team here about Pensacola youth soccer lease? Has it been executed?
It's going to council in December. Yeah, this month. Yeah. So I think there were some questions about 2-year or 3-year that a council member had brought up. Our goal has always been to just get us to some consistency, back to kind of the topic of the day. Get us, when I got here, every league had no agreements at all. We're using property. Some people had different terms than others that didn't really make sense. And I think eventually all of those youth sports contracts will have different terms. If you're using a field more and you're beating up the grass more often, and there's more of a cost to the taxpayer to come along, maybe that should be priced a little bit differently. But our goal is not, again, whatever we would be charging, whether it's per kid or per league or whatever, is a fraction of what it actually costs the city to maintain those fields. But it is important that there's some participation in that, and that we want to make sure in whatever way that these leagues can still be successful, but also help us, cover some of these costs. Price is going up for citizens. It's going up for labor in the city. It's going up for equipment and everything else. And so, we just want to be able to eliminate ambiguity and have as much clarity as possible. So I think there was just some lingering minute issue, but I just was in agenda review. It's on the agenda as of now. So coming up in December. Anything else? All right. Thank you, guys.